Hogwarts Castle, a 5-inch gauge locomotive, and this is part 20, cladding the second cylinder and some more painting. I don't intend to show the cladding of the second cylinder in the same amount of detail as I did in the first. The process is identical to the first one, but I just thought, well, I'm having to do it, so I would show it to you. This side is slightly different though. There is a bracket for the cylinder draincock operating lever, and to accommodate this bracket, I've cut this part out on the bandsaw and I'm cleaning it up with a file. Now the second piece of cylinder cladding looks like this. I've drilled the 2 holes for the draincock bushes and the small holes to allow me to bolt it to the cylinder. The next thing to do is to clean off the marking out blue using a piece of scotch brite. Notice how it clicks into place. Well, this is a good start. Once again, the scary part begins. I'm using my Proxxon motor tool to drill a hole which is tapping size for 8BA. And as I mentioned in the previous episode, you must not drill too fast into cast iron. Even though this Proxxon motor tool is revolving at quite a high speed, I'm putting sufficient pressure on the tool to slow the drill down, otherwise it will just burn out. And here I'm using my recently acquired electric toothbrush to remove all the debris. Health and safety warning: if you use your electric toothbrush in this way, I do not recommend using it to clean your teeth afterwards. In this clip I'm using an 8BA tap to thread the hole, 8BA, and I'm being really careful not to break the tap off in the hole. If this happens, I will start again and make a new piece of cladding and change the hole positions. And I really do not want to do that. And I didn't, and the first of the bolts is fitted in place. As I mentioned in the last episode, I'm using these cheese head bolts to initially fasten the cladding to the cylinder, and I will change them all for brass dome head bolts. The second hole is nearly drilled, and this is not heat that's coming from the bit, it's dust. I mentioned earlier on in this video that the process is identical to the process shown in the previous video, so I'm going to move on to the next part. All of the small 8BA bolts are in place apart from the bottom 2, so I'm drilling the hole at the left hand side. Here I'm threading it, and finally, after drilling and threading the hole at the right hand side, I fit the first of the dome head bolts in place. These, in my opinion, are more serviceable than using rivets tapped into a blind hole. At this stage of the job, I'd just like to say that I'm not going to use any thermal insulation underneath this steel cladding, because in these scales I've never found it to be very effective. For larger cylinders, yes, but not on such small ones as these. I'm sure you will agree that the dome head bolts look better than these cheese head ones. And now, without further ado, the last dome head bolt goes in place, and the job is completed. These small bolts are made from brass, so a very delicate touch is required. This thicker steel cladding, now it's in place, is far better than the other stuff that was originally fitted, that was very badly dented. And now for some high-speed painting. And I'm painting the links in between the frames. I've done one side, I've turned the engine round, now I'm doing the other side. This time I've got a paintbrush that isn't shedding bristles, and it's quite a therapeutic job really, although I do think I see a bristle on the part nearest the camera. So before I continued the painting, I carefully removed the offending bristle. The paintwork in this area of the engine is not the most stunning I've ever seen, but really you have to draw the line somewhere. If you want to go for absolute perfectionism, then the job becomes impractical. If, for instance, all of the machining and all of the parts of this engine were absolutely perfect and scarily good, then yes, I would dismantle them and do it a different way. When it's all finished, and these parts have all been painted maybe a couple of times, they should look good, and at least they're not going to go rusty. And that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful.